All right, today on Stupid Cooking for Your Children, I'm gonna teach you guys how to cook a really great soup that's really inexpensive, but packs a powerful wallop for your kids. Now, it's tough sometimes to get kids to eat healthy, but this I think is gonna be a delicious soup kids are gonna love. This is my Italian sausage tortellini soup. Really inexpensive, really easy to put together. So we're gonna start off with a couple of things. First, onions. Just about all the recipes I have, the base ingredient for everything is onions. And for soup, I prefer to use the yellow onion. It's got a powerful wallop. It's really nice in soups because it really draws the flavor out. Gives a nice thick base. We're gonna be using some garlic, and we're gonna crush it. Normally I'd roast it, but with this you don't have to roast it. You can saute it with the onions and it's beautiful. Another thing you need is 14 ounces of crushed tomatoes. It's like $1.50 to pick up some of these. You can make your own tortellinis, but honestly it's really easy to go buy Italian sausage tortellinis already pre-made. Again, super easy, super quick. And finally, the Italian sausage. I personally like to use a hot Italian sausage, but it depends on what your kids like for heat. For younger kids, I wouldn't really suggest going with something too spicy, too hot. I would go with something a little bit sweeter. Calmer, mild Italian sausage would be great. You can get this ground. I just got the actual sausages and then I just cut them up. So it's more like a meatball kind of texture in the mouth. Let's get started. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut the onion. Now I have a separate video on how to mince an onion for this, but I'll just quickly go through it. We're gonna chop off the stem. And then we're gonna peel away as much of the paper as we can. And you wanna save as much of the onion as possible, but sometimes with me, what I prefer to do is just rip off that first layer to make it go as quick as possible. Yeah. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it in half. And we're going to slice it from the top. And there you go. Nicely minced onion. So we're gonna start with getting a little bit of heat on the pan and just having like a tablespoon, a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. Then we're gonna add our onions to start sauteing, and we want to get the onions to be translucent and really cooked well before we start adding the ingredients. What we want to do is we want to layer the ingredients, layer the flavors. Next thing I want to do is I want to grab some cloves of garlic. I want 6 nice ones. 6 nice cloves. That one looks good. That one looks good. I'm not too entirely happy with this bulb. We'll do better next time. There we go. 6 and yeah, that one looks good. Okay, so there we go. Now what I like to do is cut off the tips and the stems of the clove. can also use buy a jar of minced garlic, and it'll stay in your fridge forever, and you can just grab a couple of teaspoons of that. And this I find really adds to the flavor. I'm not worried about that. Let's get another guy just to be safe. I don't mind using fresh garlic, works for me. Now you want to peel them. Now what I like to do is like to crush them first, and then I find the peels come off really easy that way. But again, you want to be able to, you want to take the tips off, so you're left with just the clove. It makes crushing or peeling them so much easier. There you go. Take that paper off. Let's give him a bit of an attitude. Now, when it comes to cutting boards, I prefer very much to use a wooden cutting board. It has a property that's antibacterial, and I just like the look and feel of a wood cutting board. Maple, not bamboo. I've seen some out there bamboo. I'm not a fan of the bamboo ones. And I really don't know enough about bamboo to know if it is something that would be antibacterial. But maple has a quality to it that makes it impossible for bacteria to culture on. So here we go. Nice. And when you're cutting, make sure you have your fingers curled so you're not going to snip them off at all, because you're using a sharp knife. And this knife does have to be resharpened, I can tell. But just get those down nice and fine, without hurting yourself. That clove split in half. There we go. Now you can hear me sniffling a bit. The sulfur in the onions I just finished cutting made me tear up quite a bit. Normal, onions do make you cry. In order to defeat that or combat that, a thing you can do is soak the onions in water. Also, good idea to clean off all that black powdery stuff on there, which could be fungus. Could be fungus on there. But rinse them in water for a few minutes helps kind of neutralize the sulfur in the onion, which is what makes you cry. Another thing you can do is put the sulfur, or another thing you can do is put the onions in the freezer for 8 minutes, but your freezer can be used for better things. Okay, so we see that it's getting a little bit brown here, a little bit dark brown here, almost black at some points here. This is, quite honestly, is due to the fact that I'm using a pot that I don't normally use. The pot I normally use for my soups is not very camera friendly, so I decided to use Lagostina, a little bit nicer stainless steel, but I'm not used to the temperature that this pot goes to, so it did get away from me a little bit here, but that's okay. This actually is really great. It does help release a lot of flavor from the onions and from the garlic. So we're gonna let that just saute. We're kind of almost ready. I would like to saute it a little bit longer, but normally if I was making a soup like tomato or broccoli or even mushroom or cauliflower, I'd let that sit a little longer by itself. But because I'm making Italian sausage, I want to cook the sausages. So I'm going to actually add the Italian sausage now and allow that to cook with the onions and garlic. Now the nice thing about the Italian sausage is because of all the fat content, as you're cooking it, the fat's going to render down, and it's going to add a little bit more flavor to the soup, a little thickness, a little more body to the soup, as well as the sautéed onions are just going to love it. Once the sausage is all browned up nicely, what we're going to do is we're going to add the crushed tomatoes. So we're going to grab our spatula and our crushed tomatoes. Again, if you wanted to go a little bit more farm to table kind of philosophy, what we could do is we could roast these potatoes and then drop them in. But honestly, for the price of a can of crushed tomatoes, it's just so simple to be able to do it this way. So as we're going through the process of adding ingredients, I like to mix it up. And again, my kids like this soup. They like their soup a little bit on the hotter side. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some cayenne pepper and some red chili flakes. So a few red hot pepper chili flakes. A little black pepper. I like black pepper for heat. I like the base of heat it has. It's a little more back of the mouth heat versus with the peppers, it tends to hit you a little bit more forward on the tongue. I like this. Yeah. Now you see these dark parts here. That's from the slightly overdone onions. But I swear by, when you get to the point where they're dark brown, even black, you're still getting more flavor out of the onion, adding it to the soup. So I think it's a good way to go. And a couple of dashes of cayenne pepper sauce. There we go. I just give that a mix. I want to reduce the heat a little bit to lengthen the cooking process, to really draw out those flavors from everything that's going in there. So now we get this really nice saucy kind of soup. It's more saucy than anything else. Now we're going to add our liter of chicken broth. And again, just let that simmer for a little bit. And what I've found with all my soups is the real secret ingredients to making a great soup is time. No, not the spice. The longer it stays on the stove simmering, and dare I say, even putting it into the fridge for a little bit overnight, really makes a difference. Really allows the soup, the flavors to come all the way through. For this next part, what we're going to do is we're going to make a béchamel sauce. And it sounds scary, but it's really simple to do. And this is what I would do if I didn't have the opportunity to have some heavy table cream or some even whipping cream. Whipping cream is a great thing to add to this. But we need to add a cup of some sort of dairy to it. And I prefer to use whipping cream or heavy table cream. But today I actually don't have any. So I'm going to make a béchamel sauce, which is a white cream sauce. It's dairy based, so it's based with milk. And it's 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of flour, and a cup of milk. It's that easy. So first we're going to do is we're going to add our 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm just going to let that melt down a little bit. Once we have it melted down, we're just going to add some flour there. We're going to just whisk it in here. Get it mixed in there, making a nice roux. Make sure all the flour is completely absorbed by the butter. And now we're just going to add a cup of milk. I prefer to do it in stages. Once it's in there, it cools it all down and whisk it in. You'll notice it starts to thicken up almost right away. And then we'll just add some more. Same thing, just mixing it in there. Just mixing it in there, getting that flour all absorbed up, thickening that up. This is a beautiful, creamy white sauce. And what you're looking for, stuff the rest in there. What you're looking for is a nice pudding consistency. You want to stay on top of this because the bottom can cook pretty quick. So you want to stay on top of the whisking and just keeping it moving so the heat's consistent throughout the sauce. And like I said, once you get to a thick, you'll see it bubbling slow, and we get a slow bubble going on here, like these, getting the little bubbles here, slightly bigger. That's when you're gonna get that thickness, that pudding consistency. That's when we're ready to put into the soup. Yeah, that's where we're at. This is where you want to be before we add it to the soup. Okay, so that is a good béchamel sauce right there. Okay, so now we're just going to add that to the sauce here. So I'm going to put it in there, scrape the bottom as you go, so it doesn't overcook the bottom, so a little easier for cleanup later on. You're going to put that in there. Yeah, all that there. Good stuff. That's going to give it some thickness to it and add a little creamery taste to it. That's going to add some thickness to it and make it a little creamery. Really beautiful consistency with that. It's going to thicken it up just a tad with a bit of a dairy flavor to it. So there you go. And that's pretty much it, folks. Now we're going to let this sit for about an hour. Let the flavor really come through here. So the only thing really left to do now to the soup is add the tortellinis. Now, if you're serving this fresh, like you've just made it and you want to serve it to your kids right away, it's best to leave these about 15 minutes before you serve it. So leave it out until about 15 minutes before. However, I've done some experimenting with this and I've actually put these in while they were raw, uncooked. And then I froze them. I froze the soup in little cups. And these actually really well reconstituted. When you microwave them the next day for your lunch, it's actually quite amazing. It's got a quite amazing texture to it. It doesn't go too soggy or anything like that. But again, if you're serving this fresh, I would suggest to leave these out until 15 minutes before you serve it. So we're almost ready. We're about ready to start the final boil. And then at that point, we're going to add these and we're going to let it go into a simmery, low boil, nothing too crazy, for about 15 minutes before we serve it. As we're getting close to the end of our cook, this is where you want to start thinking about seasoning the soup. I like using pink Himalayan salt, but don't be afraid to use table salt. Table salt with iodine in it. A lot of people freak out about it, but actually that's a good thing. It's not bad. I mean, don't overdo salt, but just season it to taste. Now, I don't like a lot of salt in my food, so I'm very cautious about it. So I season very sparingly, almost to the point where it needs a little bit more. So I leave a little bit of salt and pepper on the table with the soup so the kids can season it to taste when they get it. So we're going to turn the heat down a little bit here now. Got a nice consistency to it. Beautiful coloring. This is going to be a delicious soup. Now we're going to add the tortellinis. I'm going to stir them in there. There you go. We'll let that sit on low for about 15 minutes and we should be good to serve. So that's it. You might want to serve this with maybe a French baguette or a panini loaf or some artisan breads, but really this is a meal on its own. There's nothing really needed to add to this to make it into a delicious, fulfilling meal your kids are gonna love. Super easy, super simple. The one warning I would say is that if you do make this, you might wanna make a double batch because it's that delicious. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. And remember, keep your pants dry and your dreams wet.